Welcome to another episode of I'm Dying to Tell You. There may be a burst of some more episodes because I woke up and I remembered stories I hadn't remembered for years. This one, I'm either going to call it Donahue, Oprah, and Me, or Leave Your Confirmation Bias at the Door. Many, many years ago, uh, I was on the Donahue show. He predated Oprah. And I was very nervous. I'd never been on national TV. And what happened is he came to Los Angeles and I waited for him to call on me. And they had guests uh, uh, on the show. And the audience kept saying, call on the doctor. What about the doctor? And Donahue kept saying, we'll get to the doctor. And time was passing and time was passing. And it was like the last segment of the show. And not only that, my microphone was turned down, which means I would have to yell because I guess that's, to have a yelling psychiatrist, was more watchable on television. And then when he finally called on me, I said something passive aggressive. And he twisted it around. I mean, he's an expert, and this was my first time on TV. He twisted it around, and the whole audience booed me. And I remember I had a beard at that time, and I looked around smiling like, what the heck am I doing here? And then the show was over, and then one of the producers came up to me and said, we were really disappointed in you. And so that was my first taste of being on national television. And I said to myself after that, I'm not going back on. I mean, this was all ego. They weren't paying me. And I'm not going back there. I've had enough. I'm a little bit on the shy. I was a little bit on the shy side. And I'm just going to go back to my office and see my patients and hang this one up. But then about 6 months later, I got a call from the Oprah show. And this was, her show was still pretty new. And I guess my injury had worn down and they were going to fly me to Chicago. And I figured, why not go? And the topics of the show is back then I was an expert and the inventor of something called recoupling therapy. So there were some articles written about me that I helped divorced couples get back together again with an ex-spouse. And it worked out pretty well. It was actually easier to help them reconcile than to keep an unhappy marriage together because I screened them. I screened them ahead of time and they found out about me by word of mouth. And I said, you need to be taking responsibility for how you messed up the marriage. If there's 1 ounce of blaming going on, I'm not going to see you. And also you need to have learned some lessons. And you need to learn some lessons that cause you to be a little bit contrite and owning up to what you did wrong. So my screening was the reason for being easier to get them back together again. So there I go to Chicago and I'm in front of the audience and the audience is staring at me like this. And so I had this deja vu and I thought, oh my God, they're here to judge me. They're here to boo me. They're here to laugh at me. What am I doing here? So that was kind of a negative confirmation bias. I was looking for them to tear me apart. But then the person who was miking me said to me, Dr. Mark, everybody in the audience is divorced and they're unhappy about it. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, everyone in the audience is divorced and they're unhappy about being divorced. And then I looked at the audience. They didn't change the way they looked at me, but I changed the way I looked at them. I was thinking, oh, they're not here to judge me and boo me. They're here for me to be helpful to. They're here for me to give them some hope that there's a possibility that if you have an unhappy divorce, it's possible to get back together again. And so I talked to them as if I was speaking on career day to fifth graders. And I was there to be kind and helpful. And what happened is that when you do a good job on Oprah's show, when they were running the last credits, the closing credits, they will often show you, or she'll ask you questions. And she asked me a few questions. And because I had the support of the audience, every question she asked me, and you can find it if you look up Oprah, Dr. Goulston, you'll see the audio from it because the video was too old. And she asked me 3 questions. And because I felt the audience was on my side, I knocked it out of the park. And she was kind of new on her show. And so she kept asking me more challenging questions. And I knocked those out of the park. When she finally got to the 3rd question, I think it was clear to her that I had won the audience over to me. And at that point, and you can hear this if you look that up on YouTube, Oprah, Mark Goulston, she says, well, this girl says he knows his stuff, because I had won the audience away from her, challenging questions, which wasn't a good thing to do, with someone when it was her first year. So she was just getting a feel for this. I could have gotten away with it years later when she found Dr. Phil, whose directness she really liked, and he helped her with some scandal that was going on, I think about meat or something like that. But what's the lesson for you to take away? Is that before you jump to conclusions, especially negative conclusions, you might want to ask yourself, where are they coming from? And I will tell you, if you're speaking to an audience, they're not looking to judge you. They're not looking to waste their time just to be ticked off at you. They're looking for you to help them. So make sure that you don't misread the audience like I did, and ask yourself, what is it that they're looking to get from me, given the title of whatever I'm talking about? So I hope you find that helpful and can use that so that you don't jump to the wrong conclusion like I did.